All right. Just making sure everything is working. It's been a while. All right. Checking this out. Good. All right. Welcome to the most boring stream ever. I'm not joking. This is going to be pretty dull. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about managerial accounting for the hour, and then I'll be back for a bit of time, probably doing some more managerial accounting info. And yeah, so that's fun. Managerial accounting. Learning together. All right, where are we? Chapter 2. Well, we gotta start with our reading. Job order costing, calculating unit product costs. All right. The cool thing is, I wonder if this even, if I hit play. Sounds like this is gonna be a lot of math. I mean, it kind of makes sense though, right? Like, you need to make sure that you're not losing money every sale you make. So, let me just update my title here. What are we? Job order costing, calculating unit. Oh, that's not what I want. There we go. Just type it. There we go. That's better. All right. We're in a better situation now than we were. Awesome. Because I'm kind of new at this and I don't know how else to test this, I'm going to see if my audio is coming through, because sometimes it doesn't. Man, it's hard to find. Just go to... All right, there we go. All right. There we go. Hey, audio is coming through. There's kind of a delay, of course, but it's to be expected. Cool. All right. Let's get down to business. Try to set an alarm here. Perfect. All right. Companies usually assign costs, product, and services for two main reasons. First, helps them fulfill their planning, controlling, and decision-making responsibilities. Oh. There we go. All right. Companies usually assign costs to their products and services for two main reasons. First, it helps them fulfill their planning, controlling, and decision-making responsibilities. Well, I guess that's going to stay there. All right. For example, a company may use product cost information to better understand each product's profitability or to establish each product's selling price. Second, it helps them determine the value of ending inventories and costs of the goods sold for external reporting purposes, which may not be important if you have your own business and you're not publicly traded. The costs attached to products that have not been sold. The costs attached to products that have not been sold are included in ending inventories on the balance sheet, whereas the costs attached to units that have been sold are included in costs of goods sold on the income statement. It's very common for external financial reporting requirements to heavily influence how companies assign costs to their products and services because most countries, including the United States, require some form of absorption costing for external financial reports. Many companies use some form of absorption costing for product costing purposes. And then this is just important. So in absorption costing. In absorption costing, all manufacturing costs, both fixed and variable, are assigned to units of product. Units are said to fully absorb manufacturing costs. Conversely, all non-manufacturing costs are treated as period costs, as they are not assigned to units of product. Interesting. So, let me pull up something real fast. Might help me understand that better. So I made a thing here. Actually, we're going to do this. Okay. Let's zoom in just a bit here. Okay, good. How do we organize/classify costs into useful information? Assigning costs to cost objects. Okay. Yep. This is kind of all the things of managerial accounting, right? Managerial accounting, we're assigning costs to cost objects, we're accounting for costs in manufacturing companies, preparing financial statements, predicting cost behavior in response to changes in activity, and making decisions based off those, basically based off all these, right? Those are just, I mean, that's not all, obviously this is just a watered down. These are some categories you can put things in, right? That's what we're getting at here. So, that being said, what we are looking at here is absorption costing. What is absorption costing? All manufacturing costs. Manufacturing costs here, all of these. So direct materials, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, which includes indirect materials, indirect labor, and other things. So all of these, both fixed and variable, which these are mixtures of. Right? Are these mixtures indirect labor, other factory rent? Yeah, factor. I think that should be factory actually. This is a fixed cost. These are fixed costs. Are assigned to units of product. Units are said to fully absorb manufacturing costs. Conversely, all non-manufacturing costs, which are selling costs and administrative costs, are treated as period costs as they are not assigned to units of product. It is very common for external financial reporting requirements to heavily influence how companies assign costs to their products and services. All right, let me read this again. Absorption costing is kind of, to me, it sounds like like we're making a term, we're calling it absorption costing, and we're kind of combining all these things and making a unit, you know, uh, like, oh, this is 1 unit. We're creating a simplified version of all of this information. We're simplifying information, and then all these non-manufacturing costs are period costs. So which is honestly what they are anyway. So um, hmm. So let's read this again. Companies usually assign costs to their products and services for 2 main reasons. First, it helps them fulfill their planning, controlling, and decision-making responsibilities. So why would you assign costs to your product and service? Um, the first thing that comes to mind is I want to make money, right? Why else would I assign cost to, oh, you know what this is saying? This is your cost. Or like when, for instance, I'm selling bean bags. I have to buy the beans and I have to buy the bags and I have to pay for them to be assembled, right? Um, and then I sell them. But the costs that we're talking about are my costs for those products. So why would I assign costs? Well, one, they do cost money, and it helps me figure out how much money I'm spending, consistently. So it helps them fulfill their planning, controlling, and decision-making responsibilities 100%. If you don't know what you're paying and how do you know how to sell it? How do you know how much to sell your product for if you don't know how, much it costs? Okay. For example, a company may use product cost information to better understand each product's profitability or to establish each product's selling price. Exactly what I was saying. A company may use product cost information to better understand each product's profitability. Now, that's important, like finding what product is doing better. Which product should you push for more? Which one makes you more money? Um, and then how much can you affect that cost? Also, what they were saying, second, it helped, I think they were saying, external reporting purposes. So if you're publicly traded, I think it's like by law that you have to have that. So, um, second, it helps them determine the value of ending inventories and cost of goods sold for external reporting purposes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're going to want to know these internally, of course. But yeah, the costs attached to products that have not been sold are included in ending inventories on the balance sheet, whereas the costs attached to units that have been sold are included in cost of goods sold on the income sheet, as they should, right? When you sell something, you paid a certain amount of money to get that sold, right? Or to get it made and be ready to be sold. If it's still in your inventory, it hasn't really been accounted for, so to say. Okay, so it is very common for external financial reporting requirements to heavily influence how companies assign costs to their products and services. Absolutely, right? If I, by law, have to figure out this crap, sorry, it's not really crap. If I, by law, have to figure this out, I mean, I would probably gear more towards the legal aspect and, oh, I have to do this way anyway, so let's just build our business around the way I legally have to do things. It's just easier. But because most countries, including the United States, require some form of absorption costing for external financial reports, and many companies use some form of this for product costing purposes. In absorption costing, all manufacturing costs, both fixed and variable, are assigned to units of product. Units are said to fully absorb manufacturing costs. Conversely, all non-manufacturing costs are treated as period costs and they are not assigned units of product. This chapter and the next explain a common type of absorption costing known as job order costing. In this chapter, we'll discuss the role of job order costing systems in planning, control, and decision making. Our focus will be on assigning manufacturing costs to individual jobs. In the next chapter, we'll explain how job order costing systems can be determined or can be used to determine the value of ending inventories and cost of goods sold for external reporting purposes. All right. So, essentially, there are different products or services. We are going to be looking at job order costing. I'm pretty confident that this is per job. Per job, I need to evaluate how much this is going to cost, right? I need to know sprinkler repair business is something that comes to mind, right? I need to how much is it going to cost for me to install a brand new sprinkler system into your yard? Well, I'm a fixed cost. I am going to have to buy a trench digger, and so I'll rent that out for a day and dig the trenches. I'll need to buy all the PVC. Anyway, I need to buy all the materials. I need to pay for labor, which is a variable cost, however long that takes. Job order costing, right? Like I need to give them a bid about how much could I do this. But I need to know how much it's going to cost because I should be making money on this. You know, I'm doing a service. I should be making some money on this, right? I shouldn't just I mean, we're not charity cases. Everyone's got to get something for something, right? Um, so absorption costing, both fixed and variable, are assigned to units of product. I'm curious on what units of product means, you know. Units are said to fully absorb manufacturing costs. Yeah. I don't know in a situation where we're doing job order costing, well, I guess the T-shirt example that we saw is a manufacturing company, so that so it's less, you know, less like what I was explaining, a business that does an installation. But let's go to our let's go to the next page here. Job order costing, an overview. Job order costing is used in situations where many different products, each with individual and unique features, are produced each period. For example, a diesel clothing factory would typically make many different types of jeans for both men and women during a month. A particular order night consists of 1,000 bootcut men's blue denim jeans, style number A312. This order of 1,000 jeans is called a job. In a job costing order system, costs are traced and allocated to jobs, and then the costs of the job are divided by the number of units in the job to arrive at an average cost per unit. So basically what you do, let's say, so you have 1,000 jeans, right? And they're all, I don't know, they're all $1. So, you know, 1,000 jeans divided by $1, they're all $1 per jean. It's not the best example, but this average cost per unit is referred to as the unit product cost. So per unit, you have an idea of how, okay, that's pretty basic math, it seems like. Traced and allocated to jobs, and then the cost of the job are divided by the number of units in the job, arrive at an average. So basically, when you do a job, you need to figure out, in manufacturing, this is a little bit different than sprinkler repair, right? I mean, you can calculate the cost of your electricity for the gene, you know, you're running a machine probably, It's a factory, but maybe you have hand labor. I don't know, whatever it may be. Let's say you have a machine and you're using electricity. You have lights on. You have a machine that's running. You have water bill, gas maybe, uh, running diesel maybe because that's what it's called. So anyway, you have these other costs to making the jeans. You also have you need material, or if there's a way to make jeans, I don't really know anything about it, but like heck, maybe you need certain types of coloring for the blue that you have to put. You got to pay for that. So you have all these costs. You have probably some individuals who are working hourly. Um, yeah, you have costs, right? So you could probably figure all that out um, and divide that by 1,000. Let's say the total cost was a dollar per gene. You add all those costs up, divide it by 1,000, and then you have a certain amount of money per gene. Like the total, I would say for that job, run the total costs. You know, how much money would that cost you? And that could take some serious time to figure out all those variable costs like electricity. Like how do you measure that, right? um it would take work, but this would be the average cost per unit, right? You would divide it by 1,000, and then per unit you would know about how much it costs. That gives you a very, very specific idea of, oh, when I do 1,000, this is how much it costs per unit. And then you can turn around and sell it and figure out what other people are selling. Other examples of this situation where job order costing would be used include large-scale construction projects. Hey, that's kind of what I was talking about. Managed by Bechtel International, commercial aircraft produced by Boeing, business card designed, printed and shipped by Vistaprint, and airline meals prepared by LSG Sky Chefs. All of these examples are characterized by diverse outputs. Each Bechtel project, Bechtel is who again? Commercial aircraft. Okay. Each Bechtel project is unique and different from every other. The company may be simultaneously constructing a dam in Nigeria and a bridge in Indonesia. Likewise, each airline orders a different type of meal from LSG Sky Chef's catering service. Job order costing is also used extensively in service industries. I was going to say, yeah, there's other things like hospitals, law firms, movie studios, accounting firms, advertising agencies, and repair shops all use variation of job order costing to accumulate costs. Although the detailed example of job order costing provided in the following section deals with a manufacturing company, the same basic concepts and procedures are used in many service organizations. In business, is this really a job? Looks like people biking. VPT Biking Vacations of Bristol, Vermont offers deluxe biking vacations in the United States, Canada, Europe, and other locations throughout the world. For example, the company offers a 10-day tour of Puglia region of Italy, the heel of the boot. The tour price includes international airfare, 10 nights of lodging, most meals, use of a bicycle, and ground transportation as needed. I have a friend that actually biked across France on his vacation. He's not like a racer. He like it wasn't a racing. It was total. It's like one of those lounge bikes, right? He just cruised along the countryside. I was like, that's pretty lit. I'd love to do that. I think I'd be beat, but each tour is led by at least 2 local tour leaders, one of whom rides with the guests along the tour route. The other tour leader drives a sag wagon that carries extra water, snacks, and bicycle repair equipment and is available for a shuttle back to the hotel or up a hill. It also transports guest luggage from one hotel to another. Each specific tour can be considered a job. That makes sense, right? One tour, 10-day tour. For example, I mean, that'd just be confusing to split that up. each day. Anyway, for example, these two people have led a VBT tour with 17 guests over 10 days in late April. At the end of the tour, submitted a report to VBT headquarters. This report detailed the on-ground costs incurred for this specific tour, including fuel and operating costs for the van, lodging costs for the guests, the costs of meals provided to guests, and the cost of snacks, the cost of hiring additional ground transportation as needed, and the wages of the tour leaders. In addition to these costs, some costs are paid directly by VBT in Vermont to vendors. The total cost incurred for the tour is then compared to the total revenue collected from guests to determine the gross profit for the tour. That's an interesting way to build a business, because basically you have a business that has already sold the ticket, right? They sold the ticket to say, hey, this is how much it would cost for this tour. The tourist comes, they do the trip, and then they calculate all the costs and send it back to headquarters, and they find out if they had a loss or a gain. I mean, they should be wise enough to sell it at a high enough cost that it always should be a gain. But with this tour, there's some variable costs. There are some costs that are not accounted for, so you could totally, yeah, you could really have a problem. But you can also, I think, do pretty well with that. I mean, I like the way this is set up. It's interesting, for sure. Job order costing. An example. To introduce job order costing, we will follow a specific job as it progresses through the manufacturing process. This job consists of two experimental couplings that Yost Precision Machining has agreed to produce for Loops Unlimited, a manufacturer of roller coasters. Couplings connect the cars on the roller coaster and are a critical component in the performance and safety of the ride. Before we begin our discussion, it bears re-emphasizing that companies generally classify manufacturing costs into three broad categories: direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead, as we see here. As we study job order costing, operation of a job order costing system, we will see how each of these three types of product costs is assigned to jobs for purposes of computing unit product costs. All right, managerial accounting in action. The issue. Yost Precision Machining is a small company in Michigan that specializes in fabricating precision metal parts that are used in a variety of applications, ranging from deep-sea exploration vehicles to the inertial triggers in automobile airbags. The company's top managers gather every morning at 8 a.m. I'm sure that's an important detail, in the company's conference room for the daily planning meeting. Attending the meeting this morning are Gene Yost, the company's president, David Chong, the marketing manager, Debbie Turner, the production manager, and Mark White, the company controller. The president opened the meeting. Here's my voices. The production schedule indicates we'll be starting job 2B47 today. Isn't that the special order for experimental couplings, David? That's right. That's the order from Loops Unlimited for two couplings for their new roller coaster ride for Magic Mountain. Why only two couplings? Don't they need coupling for every car? Yes, but this is a completely new roller coaster. The cars will go faster and will be subjected to more twists, turns, and loops than any other existing roller coaster. To hold up under these stresses, Loops Unlimited engineers completely redesigned the cars and couplings. They want us to make sure they want us to make just two of these new couplings for testing purposes. If the design works, then we'll have the inside track on the order to supply couplings for the whole ride. We agree. This is Gene, a new person. Oh my gosh. Gene is gonna be a dude, I think. We agreed to take. Oh wait, did I already do Gene? Oh, Gene's the deep voice. All right. We agreed to take on this initial order at the cost just to get our foot in the door. Mark, will there be any problem documenting our costs so we can just get paid, or so we can get paid? No problem. The contract with Loop stipulates that they will pay us an amount equal to each coupling's unit product costs as determined by our job order costing system. I can finalize each coupling's direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead costs on the day the job is completed. Good. Is there anything else we should discuss about this job at this time? No? Well, let's move on to the next item of business. The blueprints. Alright, measuring direct materials cost. The blueprints submitted by Loops Unlimited indicate that each experimental coupling will require 3 parts that are classified as direct materials, 2 G7 connectors, and 1 M46 housing. Since each coupling requires 2 connectors and 1 housing, the production of 2 couplings requires 4 connectors and 2 housings. So basically, they need to make a thing. This is a custom product that is being made for the first time, but if this were one of the company's standard products, it would have an established bill of materials. A bill of bill of materials is a document that lists the quantity of each type of direct material needed to complete a unit of product. When an agreement has been reached with the customer concerning the quantities, prices, and shipment date for the order, a production order is issued. The production department then prepares a materials requisition form similar to the form in Exhibit 2-1, which we have here. The materials requisition form is a document that specifies the type and quantity of materials to be drawn from the storeroom and identifies the job that will be charged for the costs of the materials. The form is used to control the flow of materials into production and also for making journal entries in the accounting records. The Yoast Precision Machining Materials Requisition Form in Exhibit 2-1 shows that the company's milling department has requisitioned 2 M46 housings and 4 G7 connectors and for Loop's Unlimited job. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of spaced out on this. It's really boring. Basically, they have several different departments. One, they're gonna have a job that gets sent to a place that makes a form saying, hey, we need this to be made, and it includes this stuff, and then that department makes the stuff and sends it out, probably. So now we get into our job, now that we know the entire company's info. After a production order has been issued, the accounting department's job order costing software system automatically generates, oh yeah, because we don't have to do things by hand anymore because we're in the world of today and that doesn't happen. So so basically our computer generates a job cost sheet like the one presented in Exhibit 2-2. A job cost sheet, it records the materials, labor, and manufacturing overhead costs charged to the job. So basically, to recap, this department that's making it is going to record the hours that they spent on it and the materials and all that jazz, and then the accounting department's automatically going to get fed that info, and awesome. After direct materials are issued, the cost of these materials are automatically recorded on the job cost sheet. Note from Exhibit 2-2, for example, that the 660 costs for direct materials shown earlier on the materials requisition form has been charged to job 2B47 on its job cost sheet. Oh my gosh, it's so boring. The requisition number 14,873 from materials requisition form appears on the job cost sheet to make it easier to identify the source document for the direct materials charge. All right. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I heard. Measuring direct labor cost. Direct labor consists of labor charges that are easily traced to a particular job. That's the definition of direct labor. Thank you for teaching me that again. Labor charges that cannot be easily traced to specific jobs are treated as part of manufacturing overhead. That's called indirect labor, which you can also see in the document to the right. That's the definition of indirect labor. Includes tasks such as maintenance, supervision, and cleanup. I'm going to add that. Very good. Most companies rely on computerized systems to maintain employee time tickets. A completed time ticket is an hour-by-hour summary of the employee's activities throughout the day. That is cool. I have never heard of that. One computerized approach to creating time tickets uses barcodes to capture data. Each employee and each job has a unique barcode. Oh, this is unique to manufacturing. When beginning work on a job, the employee scans 3 barcodes using a handheld device, much like a barcode reader at grocery store checkout stands. Okay, I don't want to learn about this garbage. All right, computing predetermined overhead rates. So a predetermined overhead rate, overhead. This is the cost of the product, I'm pretty confident. Recall that in absorption costing, product costs include manufacturing overhead as well as direct materials and direct labor. Wow. Okay. Therefore, manufacturing overhead also needs to be recorded on the job cost sheet. However, assigning manufacturing overhead to a specific job is complicated by 3 circumstances. Manufacturing overhead is an indirect cost. It is. And I kind of discussed that actually earlier, like calculating electricity. Yeah, this means that it's either impossible or very difficult to trace these costs to a particular product or job, especially if you have a manufacturer, if you're manufacturing several things at the same day. Like I assume your company is in business and is doing business and isn't just doing this one job. Manufacturing overhead consists of many different types of costs, ranging from grease used in machines to the annual salary of the production manager. Some of these costs are variable overhead costs because they vary in direct proportion to changes in the level of production, indirect materials, supplies, and power. And some are fixed overhead costs because they remain constant at the level of production fluctuates, like heat and light, property taxes, and insurance. Um, oh, I see what they're saying. You could also say AC, heat and light. It's because it's like constant, you know, the constant, you're always going to have it a certain temperature, I guess. It's kind of what I'm thinking. You're always going to have these lights on because you're going to be open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever. You're always going to have property taxes. I mean, I assume. Yeah, I get what they're saying here. Okay, many companies have large amounts of fixed manufacturing overhead, and others have large amounts of variable. All right. Therefore, their total manufacturing overhead costs tend to remain relatively constant from one period to the next, even though the number of units they produce can fluctuate widely. Consequently, the average cost per unit will vary from one period to the next. Yes, so if you have a high variable cost and a low fixed cost, basically, no matter if you sell less or more products in a month or a year or whatever, your fluctuation is going to be very little because your cost per product is going to, let's say it's like, I hope it's not this high, but 90% of the cost of the item is variable costs, and then 1% is fixed. You sell 100 of those, and then you sell like one of those. It's the cost. It's going to be like the same, right? The cost per item over that year. Anyway, given these circumstances, an allocation method is used to assign overhead costs to products. What? Let me think about this. So the fact that overhead, like figuring out overhead, is a pain in the butt, there is an allocation method that is used to assign overhead costs to products. Okay. Allocation is accomplished by selecting an allocation base. So you got to select something that is common to all the company's products and services. Oh, I see. I'm interested in how this works. It's going to be inaccurate. That's the thing, right? But it's going to be closer than it would be, right, if you didn't do anything at all. An allocation base gets you a step closer, even though it's going to be inaccurate. Like, this isn't truly what it costs, but it's the best we got without spending a ridiculous amount of money, I guess, is what I'm thinking. All right, so what are we doing here? Allocation is accomplished by selecting an allocation base. An allocation base is a measure such as direct labor hours or machine hours that is used to assign overhead costs. An allocation base is a measure, right? Such as direct labor hours that is used to assign overhead costs to products and services. The most widely used allocation bases in manufacturing are direct labor hours, direct labor costs, machine hours, and where the company has only a single product units of product. Oh, that's interesting. Manufacturing overhead is commonly assigned to products using a predetermined overhead rate. The predetermined overhead rate is computed by dividing the total estimated manufacturing overhead costs for the period by estimated total amount of allocation base as follows. Predetermined overhead rate is equal to estimated total manufacturing overhead cost divided by estimated total amount of allocation base. Wait, so let me get this straight here. An allocation base, the common ones are direct labor hours, direct labor cost, machine hours, and units of product. And the reason is because every single product is going to have direct labor hours, direct labor costs. Each item that we have in our factory are going to have those. So we're going to use that. See, and I was thinking more like factory rent. I don't know. This is pretty much the same thing, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. So you're going to divide our total manufacturing overhead costs by that allocate. So we have a variable thing divided by a constant thing. Huh. And that's going to tell us to some extent it's going to give us a fraction or something. Okay, the predetermined overhead rate is computed before the period begins using a 4-step process. The first step is to estimate the total amount of the allocation base, the denominator. That will be required for the next period's estimated level of production. The second step is to estimate the total fixed manufacturing overhead cost for the coming period and the variable manufacturing overhead cost per unit of the allocation base. The third step is to use the cost formula shown below to estimate the total manufacturing overhead cost, the numerator for the coming period. Y equals A plus BX. I'm going to jump to the questions. I want to do something else because I'm not quite getting this. Also, I'm just tired of reading it. It's so boring. So costs assigned to units of product under absorption costing include variable manufacturing, fixed manufacturing. It doesn't include non-manufacturing, so that should be it. Companies that make different products for each period use absorption, something dash costing. Job order costing. Which of the following is not a manufacturing cost category? Direct materials, selling and administrative is not. Factory labor charges that cannot be easily traced to a job are treated as manufacturing overhead. Manufacturing overhead consists of many different kinds of direct costs. No. Single kind of direct. No. Single kind. Many different kinds of indirect costs. Costs assigned to units of product and absorption costing include both variable and fixed manufacturing costs. The predetermined overhead rate is multiplied by the actual allocation base incurred by a job defined. I don't know. So predetermined overhead rate multiplied by the actual allocation base would give you the, it's, because the equation we saw was predetermined overhead rate is equal to, something divided by allocation. So if you times allocation, then you'd be left with, I think, actual overhead. Overhead applied to the job. Okay. Companies that use job order costing make many different products. This place, you want me to do math? I'm gonna guess. I really don't want to do math. So the predetermined overhead rate is equal to this divided by direct labor hours is equal to direct labor per. Oh, okay. The overhead applied to the job, $20 per hour per direct times. The overhead applied to the job is equal to this times the hours. That makes sense. Next question. Categories of manufacturing costs include direct, oh, not that, menu. Why do companies use a predetermined overhead rate rather than actual? Well, it's pretty dang difficult. It's my alarm. Actual overhead rate can never be calculated. It can be, so I'm thinking it's this. Huh. Not known. All right, well, that's the end of the first part of the stream for today. I gotta run.